Do you know about the day the music died? It was one of the most tragic events that happened in American music history. It was the day when a plane crashed and killed Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and J.P. Richardson. These were three of the greatest rock and roll singers of the time. In their time, they were living legends, and they were still in their prime. But what led to these tragic events? Keep watching to learn about the tragic details about the day the music died. Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper. The now legendary Buddy Holly was born September 7, 1936, in Lubbock, Texas. His family had a keen interest in music, and he began learning how to play the guitar at a young age. He was taught by his older brother Travis. His earliest musical influences included country and folk singers. His heroes were Hank Williams, Hank Snow, Jimmie Rodgers, and the Carter family. But as Buddy began to pursue a music career of his own, his style shifted to the new genre of rock and roll. This change came about after he saw Elvis Presley perform for the first time. Buddy Holly is now remembered as one of the pioneers of rock and roll music. Ritchie Valens was born in Los Angeles to immigrant parents from Mexico. He grew up with a mixture of musical influences, including mariachi, R&B, flamenco, and blues. As a child, he learned how to play the guitar, trumpet, and drums. He was 15 years old when there was a mid-air collision between two planes in his hometown of Pacoima. This event traumatized him and actually led to a fear of flying. By the time Ritchie was 16, he started performing with a band called the Silhouettes. He soon became a popular singer while still in his teens, with Donna and La Bamba becoming two of his most popular songs. Giles Perry Richardson Jr., also known as the Big Bopper, was born in Sabine Pass, Texas, and grew up in Beaumont. He began his career as a radio disc jockey, which is where he got his nickname. He had a natural flair for entertaining others on the air. He was also extremely talented at playing the guitar and worked as a songwriter. One of his earliest songs was White Lightning, which became a huge hit for country singer George Jones. Two of the Big Bopper's biggest radio hits were Chantilly Lace and Big Bopper's Wedding. These were three supremely talented artists who helped shape rock and roll music. It's no wonder this trio is collectively remembered as the Music. Before we tell you more tragic details about the day the music died, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more. How the trio came together. By the late 50s, these three artists had become some of the most famous in American music. They all became part of a tour called the Winter Dance Party Tour. They traveled across the U.S., playing clubs and concert halls. In parts of the country, the weather was extreme. Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, the Big Bopper, Waylon Jennings, and Dion were performing together on this tour. They were the biggest names in rock and roll, while Waylon Jennings was one of America's biggest country stars. The tour began in January 1959 in Milwaukee. It was intended to travel over the upper Midwest. The weather was extremely cold and the roads were icy. This caused many issues with the tour bus. Eventually, the bus broke down. The singers and musicians realized they had to find alternate methods of travel. They were stuck in the freezing winter for several hours. They drank, burned newspapers, and told anecdotes to each other to survive in the harsh winter. But many were unable to handle the severe cold. Buddy Holly's drummer, Carl Brunch, got frostbite in his feet. Buddy Holly decided he should fly to North Dakota. He felt this would give him ample time to do his laundry and get some rest before his next show. It was decided some members of the group would fly, while others would have to drive to the next location. Waylon Jennings decided not to fly and offered his seat to the Big Bopper. Ritchie Valens wanted to fly with Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper. He put his fear of flying aside and asked Tommy Alsop, Buddy's guitarist, if he could take his spot on the plane. The two men tossed a coin, and Ritchie won the toss. The trio now got on the plane together. February 3, 1959. On February 3, 1959, a plane took off from near Mason City Municipal Airport in Iowa. The weather included light snow, low visibility, and strong winds. The plane took off without any issues. However, after some time, the control towers lost contact with pilot Roger Peterson. Hubert Dwyer was the owner of the Dwyer Flying Service, which provided the plane. Once Dwyer lost contact with Peterson, he decided to charter a plane to try to retrace the plane's route. Eventually, they found the site of a plane crash on a cornfield owned by Albert Jewell. The plane was the same one that carried the trio. Sadly, all three passengers and the pilot had died. This sad day became known as the day the music died. It was the day the world lost three talented singers still in their prime. Though their careers were short-lived, their contribution to rock and roll and American pop culture remains unparalleled. Decades after this tragic event, fans still have questions about the circumstances of the plane crash. The aftermath. The aftermath of the plane crash was grim. Buddy Holly's family hadn't been immediately notified of his death. His wife, Maria Elena Holly, heard about Buddy's death on a TV news report. She was traumatized and suffered a miscarriage. They had only been married for 6 months. After Buddy Holly's death, there were protocols set up proclaiming that a celebrity's death should not be revealed to the public without informing the family first. This is now standard practice across the country. Buddy Holly and J.P. Richardson were buried in their native Texas. Ritchie Valens was buried in California, and the pilot, Roger Peterson, was buried in Iowa. Buddy Holly was 22, Ritchie Valens was 17, and J.P. Richardson was 28. Since the plane crash, many investigations have occurred to examine the circumstances that led to the crash. While pilot Roger Peterson had experience, the official report concluded he wasn't skilled enough to fly in such harsh weather conditions. It was concluded he needed to depend on the navigation tools to successfully fly through a blizzard. It was also concluded he didn't have adequate experience to use such tools. Several other investigations have been opened since the original one. The most recent one was in 2015 when a retired pilot, L.J. Kuhn, suggested there may have been an issue with the plane and that the crash shouldn't be attributed to Peterson's inexperience. But as of now, the official report still suggests the crash was due to a mix of Peterson's inexperience and the harsh weather. The legacy. The day the music died remains a harrowing day for the families and friends of the 3 artists and pilot. It's a day music fans still discuss. While Buddy, Ritchie, and J.P. Richardson left us way too young, we're glad their music still holds up today. Peggy Sue, La Bamba, and Chantilly Lace are still songs that we enjoy. These 3 artists will always be remembered as being a major influence on rock and roll. And perhaps the best way to remember them is from the 1971 song American Pie by Don McLean. Don McLean was 13 when he opened a newspaper to learn about the day the music died. The event shook him and gave him grief. He turned it into the song American Pie. To this day, music fans discuss the day the music died. They wonder about what would have happened if a more senior pilot had been in charge or the bus in Milwaukee hadn't broken down. It's likely we'll continue to discuss the tragic events, but we should also discuss the incredible artistry of Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper. Now it's time to hear from you. Are you a fan of Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, or the Big Bopper? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.